wanted to talk about today is the apps that perhaps I use, but not the apps. I'm not going to advertise the apps because you'll find the apps if you want to find the apps. But I think for me is the big question is, what do you want the app to do? We go back to it all the time. What's the intention? What's the intention of why you want to use an app? So let's just discuss some of the things that people like to manage. So people like to manage their diaries, don't they? They like to manage their diaries. They like to manage their contacts. And if you want to go a bit more advanced than that, when they contacted people and what they talked about. People like to manage lists and have places to put lists and reminders and that type of activity as well. People like notes, and then people like to write documents. And they are generally the sort of activities involved in management and information management and project management. Now, you might think about, okay, there's Excel to do spreadsheets in and Microsoft Project to do this in and not Canva, all those other things to do stuff in. I'm going to get confused if I keep talking about products. So for me, what's the intention? So let's start with a diary. So I use a diary as a calendar. I use it as a way to remind me of when I've got things booked in. And with my calendar, I do use an online calendar. I use the Apple framework. So I'm on a Mac now and I've got an iPhone somewhere, and they both talk to each other and they just do it for ease. But Microsoft do it, Google do it, all the other manufacturers of devices do it. I think the most important thing is they sync. They sync together. So if I did something here on my laptop, then it would sync to my phone and it would pop up. I think that's the first thing I would recommend to anyone. Sync your diaries. What about the use of different diaries? Well, you can do that. So you can have a diary in your calendar view, which is maybe for work, maybe for home, which is maybe for projects, or maybe for your goals or whatever you're tracking. I do that. I have a work one and I have a home one. And I also sync them so you can see them on both devices. I also have another calendar for goals which pops up in my schedule. And I also do something called my 5 a day, which is my 5 things a day. And I have that as an appointment actually in my diary. And that's a good point. Your diary is for scheduling. What gets scheduled gets done. We've heard that many, many times. So I put anything in my diary and I put little codes in so I know what it is. But my 5 things a day that I do, so I decide on 5 priorities I'm going to do each day. And I pop them in at the top of my diary in an appointment at 7 o'clock. And I literally write 5 things today and I list the 5 things today. So it's always there. Now, I used to do that on a post-it note. Same thing. But I've tried to go electronic because I'm all around the place now. So I try to go to electronic. But you can do the same. You can have a paper diary, like, one of those big diaries or little diaries, and you put your 5 a day in every day on the top there. Quite simple little trick. But again, it comes down to the intent of why you're doing it. I'm doing it to remind me to do the things that are important. What about scheduling time for yourself? You taking half an hour to do some reading or half an hour to go walking. Schedule that in. It's okay. Unless, your diary is seen by millions of people and it's scrutinized, it's okay to put things, go for a walk in the diary or dinner with family in the diary. And you think to yourself, oh, why am I being reminded to do that? Well, it's just good because you can place it into your diary and you can block your day and make sure you put the important things first. So for me, the important things are my mind, my body, my spirit, my relationships, and managing my emotions, my emotional intelligence. They're in my diary. Now, not every day, but what is in my diary is my 5 things, maybe exercise when I'm going to exercise, when I'm going for a walk, or I'm going to the gym, or going for a swim. I do put in read and a particular chapter, and so it makes it sort of like a bit of a goal. It's in there. So that's how I use my diary. And of course, I put birthdays in and I put meetings in. And I make sure in my diary I have gaps for transition time. I think one of the things we learnt in COVID, where we put loads of stuff in our diaries and people like myself were on Zoom all day and you don't leave your chance for a break in between. And we all know we need to stretch and exercise our eyes and look away from cameras and just get some water. And, I always have a glass of water. So put those things in. So there's the diary bit covered. Now, I do use an app for my to-do list, and it's called Todoist. And you can get it free on the internet. I actually pay for mine because I use some of the advanced items, and what it allows you to do, for example, is do a very linear to-do list, which is da 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 da. Or when I think one the paying one, what I use is you can put them into cards and you can sort of sort it out. So you can move one thing to there and one thing to there, which I find really useful. Because what Todoist does, it allows you to put everything into one bucket, into sort of an inbox, and then you can sort from the inbox and you can plan your day that way. I also do my 5 things in there, and I have a little card that says 5 things, but then I just copy that into my diary, as I mentioned earlier. But you don't need electronic stuff. You don't need electronic stuff. You just have a piece of pad and a paper, and you have one to-do list, which is everything. And then you sort that by priority and by day, and you can put that onto a pad and just have a running. I've got a friend of mine who I noticed her one day. She has just a paper booklet, a paper book, like an A4 paper book, like a legal or executive book. And what she simply does is she uses it to write her notes in, okay? And she writes her notes in that booklet. And then what she does, at the back pages, so she turns to the back, and on the back, and my glasses are slipping, sorry, there we go, that's better. She turns to the back, and then she has a running to-do list. And I asked her, how does she do that? And how does it work? And basically, she just writes everything she's down. She crosses things off. So she does cross things off if they're done, but also next to her, when she writes something down, she always writes what she needs to do and by when, and then later on when she reviews her to-do list at the end of each day, she'll then put the specific date she's going to do it, and then do that on those dates, cross it off, cross it off, cross it off, and that's how it works for her. Some people put appointments in their diaries for things in their to-do list. And I think that's a really good idea, because if it's something to do, it's a task. So as I said, I'm having a bit of a clear up today. I must admit, it's not in my diary. Some days I don't tend to diarise, but what I am doing today is a bit of a clear up there. So that's a task. It's going to take 2 hours. I've scheduled 2 hours of my time to do that. So again, you don't need an app, but I use an app. I think my bit of advice about using apps and using things to help you in your productivity is, if you're going to use an app, stick to it. And I would suggest for about 6 months. You don't have to buy it, because most apps you can get free for a trial period, and they let you trial, and then they want to sell you more advanced features. Do the advanced features work? I don't know the one that I've just talked about. I'm going to go back now and see what the advanced features are and see if I do use them, just to check out, really, because basically, I want to check out to see if I'm getting value for money, if I need it or not. But most of these apps are designed to suck you in, to have a play with it, and then you pay a subscription. Part of me says I used to buy books and I used to buy paper and I used to use that, so I'm saving on the subscription price to the app. And with the app, it basically, it allows me, but you've got to use it. You've got to use the app. You've got to be consistent with it. So you've got the intent, you know what you're doing and why you're doing it, and then the consistency of using the app. And keep it going and trial it, because what happens is a lot of people get apps, they try 2 or 3 times, it doesn't suit, doesn't whatever, they don't explore it, and then they either pay for it and forget they paid for it, and then they keep paying for it but they don't use it. I would suggest, again, if you're going to explore an app for project management, for time management, is go onto the internet, go onto the YouTube, and look for reviews and see how people use it. The way I use Todoist at the moment, I saw a couple of YouTubers who use it, and they showed about this card system, and I'm like, wow, that fits in with my style, my visual style, and it really works for me. So we've talked about diaries, we've talked about to-do lists. What about contact lists? Well, electronic is fantastic for contact lists, because simply you put it in once and it's there and it's stored. And in fact, Michael Heppel taught me a tip with electronic contacts. Whenever you get a phone call on your mobile and it comes up with the number, It takes 2 seconds to hit the store to contacts, put the person's name and store it in your phone. And it's great for a number of reasons. One, it'll tell you when that person called. It'll tell you who, if they call again, who it is. And also, you can add notes if you want. So if it's a customer, or if it's a customer or a person you want to re-speak to, or you want to remind someone, you want to jot something down. So maybe you meet someone and they say, "Oh, I've got this amazing service that I use. Here's the website. Bum, 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 get it in, done." And it's a really fantastic tip. And when Michael reminded me of that a while ago, I do it all the time now, and it saves so much time. You can put your contact lists in a pad if you want, but sometimes that gets laborious because you have to change it. Or you can do the old-fashioned thing and buy an address book. I don't even know you can buy address books anymore. But that's another great way of making sure that you keep that information. So far we've talked about calendars, we've talked about schedules and using them and block time and make sure you put the important things in and maybe your 5 things that you want to do at the end every day. We've also talked about lists and where you can store lists, particularly a to-do list. And then I've just talked very briefly about contacts. What else? Well, writing stuff down, as in notes, as in reminders, as in things that you want to store. I simply just use a good old-fashioned pad and paper, and I also use my computer, my phone, and my iPad, and I use Apple Notes. That's all I use. But the magic with Apple Notes and with lots of other electronic items and electronic ways of storing notes is if you put something like hashtag and you put hashtag birthday, then you're telling the computer that birthday or mum's birthday is a important thing. And when you go to the search, and every notes app I've seen has a search facility, you put in the search hashtag mum's birthday or just simply mum's birthday, and it'll bring up every note where you've written the word mum's birthday. So what I tend to do now, if I'm starting a set of notes on my computer, I will put a couple of hashtags in to remind me, sort of to summarize. Some people call this metadata, where you just summarizes what you're writing about. So I might put in hashtag mum's birthday, hashtag party ideas, hashtag things to buy. And then I can search by all those things. So, or a list, for example, or on my notes I have is things to see or places to go. So in that one, I have a number of different hashtags. So I have hashtag London. And then underneath that, I have a list of the things that I want to see in London, because I go to London quite a lot, and it's great to go, I'm going to London for a meeting. I wonder what's on my list of things to see. And I just do hashtag London in my notes on my iPad or my computer, and it says, there's a David Hockney exhibition that's on. It's a great way of using it. So use those hashtags. You might want to do hashtag recipes. Or you might have a note that says recipes, and then you have hashtag meat recipes, hashtag vegetarian recipe, hashtag brilliant desserts. It's up to you. You've got to remember the hashtags, though. That's the important thing. What about writing things down? So for me, I think what happens when people have apps for productivity, people go overboard and think they've got to record everything. Give your brilliant brain a chance. Give your brilliant brain a chance to remember things. And, I think I've talked about this before. When you create pictures in your head, and when you use sounds and you use words and you use actions and you use smells and you add taste to it and you see it in a movie and you make magnificent memories, that's a great way to store things. But our brain can't store it all. So if you've got magical moments, just write it on your pad, on your notepad or your diary, and then or your journal, and that helps you with that. So that leaves me to the last point, is about journaling. Now, I don't use electronics for journaling. I have a simple A5 journal, which I write down 2 pages a week. I do my weekly review, and I've got them there. And in fact, I've just found all my journals and I'm going through them. It's really interesting. So I don't use an app for journaling, but there are some apps out there called Day Notes or things like that, where you basically use those apps to record your journal. And you can put pictures in, you put sounds in, you put videos in, put whatever you want in really. And that's a good way of remembering. Another way also is to use that phone and take a picture a day. I've been doing a challenge with some people at the moment about taking a picture every day, and it really helps you with your memories because your phone stores things for you. It stores where you took them and when you took them. So a lot there, folks. So I hope I answered some of those questions about what apps to use. The thing to go back to right at the very start is, what is your intention? Why do you want to do it, and what's the purpose of it, and when do you want and how do you want to pull the information out? So for me, electronic diary, absolutely. You can use Apple, Microsoft, whatever you use. Just make sure you design it to yourself for yourself. The Notes app on apps is brilliant. You can also use a pad, as I said. You can have that flip book idea where you write notes down, and then at the back you can do your to-do list and you can prioritize. And then maybe what you do is you look at your to-do list on the back and bring it, you know, the 5 things you're going to do, maybe put them at the top of your page as day notes. Another friend of mine, actually, I'll mention it, what he does, he has an A4 diary, you know, like one of those big massive diaries, for 365 days with a day a page, and he has day notes. And what he does is he reminds himself of the things that he's done on that day, just so because the referencing point for him is the date. So he thinks to himself, oh, when did I have that meeting with Jean? I think it was last Thursday. What was the date last Thursday? Oh, 2nd of February, right. 2nd of February, meet with Jean. Oh, we talked about this. And that's how he uses it. And he also has the idea where he has the to-do list on the back. But what he does is he brings his 5 things he's going to do every day to that day page, and he uses it a day page. We talked about contacts and the amazing use of contacts and making sure you store when you get them. That's instant. And we finally talked about journals and using paper for journals. So I'm going to repeat again before I finish because my time's nearly up. It's not the app you use, it's the intention and the reason why you use it, and ultimately what you want at the end. And that good old saying, begin with the end in mind. Before you download that app, before you buy that planner, before you do whatever people do and, you know, go on courses for time management and all that type of stuff, think to yourself, what do you want at the end of it? What do you want to come out at the end of it? And will that be useful?